G'day fans of the NPL, it is the Verd back with you again and welcome to week 8 of the National Pokeball League Power Rankings. Of course I'm not alone, I'm joined by Phalop once again. How are we doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, man. Hello, it's good to be here.
Alright, now in case for some reason for the last 8 weeks you haven't been watching Power Rankings, basically what Paul and I do here is we look through all the 16 teams currently in the National Pokeball League and we rank them from 1st to 16th on how we feel their performance has been this season. This changes almost every week because wins and losses are so huge at this point of the season. And if you guys do enjoy the series, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the NPL channel, and also drop comments telling us how bad we are as analysts, because that's just, that's what we love. That's what we love to hear from you guys. But regardless, we're going to kick off with number 16, which is the Jersey Rebels. Now I know, big shocker that the Vancouver Stealth Rocks are not there. But the Vancouver Stealth Rocks did get their first win for the season against the Jersey Rebels. So I think, as much as I love Cloud, in real life, outside of the NPL analyst work, I love Cloud. Cloud and I are very good mates, and it's just very frustrating to see him on this bit of a slump. But honestly, in the game, it was weird because the game against Carney, as Carney told me, he was playing it while he was at work on his phone. So he couldn't do calcs, he couldn't do any of the stuff that he normally did. And honestly, maybe that was something that helped him here, because a lot of the time Carney does have a tendency to sometimes overthink a situation. And in this case, he didn't really have to overthink. He just did what he thought at the time was the best decision, and it ended up working out for him. So I don't think we really need to discuss too much on Carney. He got a good win. He's off the bottom. That's said and done. But for Cloud, it's another loss. I believe he's 1-7 now. It's just been a rough season. I think, his draft it had a lot of holes, and he tried to patch up a lot of the holes, but then also he traded away a lot of really good mons. The fact that he started the season with Skarmory and Toxapex and now has neither of them, and instead of Skarmory and Toxapex, he has Fortress and Empoleon, and that's just not, in my opinion, that's not fair. I think that Empoleon and Fortress has nothing on Skarmory plus Toxapex. I admit that Fortress and Empoleon are more offensive, but it's just that I think it's just because he's more used to those Pokemon, but regardless, I would rather use Pokemon that I know are very good for my team and very good in the format than mons that I'm good with using, but potentially in the format aren't as useful for me. But I don't know, that's just my 2 cents on that. But moving on, we do have the Chicago Bewares. Obviously, Razor coming off a pretty rough loss against Danza. You want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, as you said, it was quite a rough loss. If you just look at the beginning of the match, it was a bit back and forth. Then Razor took the lead. His Delmice got 2 kills on Danza's mons, taking hits Danza didn't expect to take, and then it also almost one-shot the Tapu Lele. And I was thinking, oh, Razor is in quite a nice position, he can take this home. But then that Mega Alakazam came in, and he just didn't have any Scarfer or something to outspeed or revenge it, and it just wiped through the last 3-4 months on his team. And I think that is just a bit when you look at the match, it was not really that bad of him. It was more that he didn't have really great prep for Mega Alakazam. His Mega Alakazam counter, I think, was the Cresselia, but Cresselia got a little bit weakened, and if you have nothing to revenge Mega Alakazam, it gets quite scary. And also, as Mega Gyarados said, it was a nice concept, a Dragon Dance rest dog, so it doesn't mind Toxic or Scald. The thing is, Vaporeon almost always runs a move like Roar, and if you have a Taunt variant of Mega Gyarados, you can really set up on Vaporeon, but then you have the problem with the burn. So I think it was just what is the right set in this situation, and I think just maybe a little bit more on his prep side that he can improve, and then he can avoid relegation.
Yeah, the one big turn that had me going, because I was in a call with some guys, I think Mono was talking about it the most, was the Sizzle crit obviously sucked at the end because he might have been a liver hit, but the big turn was when he decided to go into Garchomp first and let it die while Alakazam was in Psychic Terrain. I believe outside of Psychic Terrain, Garchomp could have taken the hit. I don't know if it was against Alakazam or Tapu Lele, but regardless, Garchomp could have taken the hit out of Terrain, and it would have popped the Salac Berry that he had, and Salac Chomp would have swept. So there was that turn where it was it also could have been I don't know the exact sets that either of them had, so I don't know if he would have lived or not, but it just seems like overall that would have been the better play in that situation than just sacking off Chomp. Since his last mod couldn't really do anything either, and then once the train wore out, maybe he had a chance to Salic it off. But regardless, it's still a loss, and Razor really needs to find his feet again. But another team, obviously, that came off a loss this week was the Baltimore Braviaries. Do you want to, have a chat about their game as well?
I think again this was quite a close game for Moxie. I think it was a 1 or 2-0 in Seb's favor.
I think it was a 1-0 actually.
It was like with Moxie, it's like I think the past few weeks now, when you look at his prep and his playing, you think, he has some innovative sets. The Mega Galate with some wish support and then some coverage options. I liked it very much. The Leaf Play did a lot of work. And then then we come down to the end game. Moxie is up like maybe 3-1, and then he just can't find the right how do you say it? The right turn of events to get the win. Like with his Salamence this week, he had a DD Salamence. He killed the Slowbro with this Supersonic Sky Strike, and then the Mega Scissor came in, and he could just not finish it off. And then Mega Scissor could roost up, could SD up, and then it could just kill the remainder of his mon. So it was like he was again, and I think this is for the past few weeks, he is up by quite a few, but then just at the end he can't seem to have that win. So I think he's just not there yet. But I feel like if he gets a bit more experience, especially with all these great competitors, I think he can be a real threat.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think he's also, we always say it, and it's the same as Shardy, they just got he got a rough end with the team that he got. And
true.
It's been definitely a challenge. I think, the fact that the last couple of weeks he's been incredibly competitive is just a testament to how skillful he is as a player. But we are going to move on here to the next group of 4. I believe we have all the same teams chilling in this group here. The first one, obviously, in 12th right now, are the Phoenix Sunflorers. Obviously, coming off another loss for Riz. Interesting question that I want to put out to you, Paul. With Riz's kind of success, I guess, success and failure so far, do you feel like Riz would... Okay, so this is going to be a really weird question, but I have my kind of reasons for it. Do you think Riz would perform better if he had something different than Mega Kangaskhan plus Hooper Unbound? Like, if he just had, say, another Mega and a different, like, Psychic or Dark type, do you think that potentially there would be, like... Because I just feel like people hype up Mega Kang and Hooper for obvious reasons. Like, both are very, very good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also then puts a lot of pressure on the player to be like, well, these mons are really good, I'm going to have to use them really well, or else it's going to make me look bad. So, do you feel like potentially Riz would have played a bit better if perhaps he had gone with, like, a more regular Psychic type and a regular Mega?
I think so, but I think it also depends a bit on the player. Like, Mega Kangaskhan, it was kind of an experiment. Hoopa has been around for the NPL and it has performed decent, but not to the standard people are expecting Hoopa to perform. And with Mega Kang, it was a bit of an experience, and I think that also was like, Mega Kangaskhan's obviously really great, but people are really, really, really prepping great for it. Like, they know it's a big threat, so they prep a little bit extra for it. And they really want that win against Riz because they think, oh, Riz has broken mons. I really want to win this match. So they put maybe a little bit of more effort into this. And I think for Riz personally, after these few weeks, he also said it's just not the right mons for his playstyle, or just he doesn't feel that he can use these mons to its full potential. So maybe if he just drafted other mons, maybe he would have done better. I think so.
Yeah, like I miss. Okay, this is kind of jumping between leagues, but I think it's important to the rankings, I suppose. Riz had a very good season recently in the Battle Union, or the TBU as they call it, where he actually went on to win the whole thing, and it was more of like a classic kind of Riz team. He wasn't like going super try-hard trying to get like the most ridiculous things, but he just found a team, it worked well for him, and he ended up winning the whole thing. And I think, he has the potential to do that, but the last couple of seasons in the NPL, especially like the 2 seasons I've been around, It's just been that Riz has never really been completely satisfied with his drafts. So I think that's definitely been a big factor from the season. But he is still potentially a chance to make playoffs. So we'll see what happens with Riz. But he's definitely going to have to try and either just spam seismic toss with Kangaskhan or do some other kind of strategy. But we'll see what happens. But moving on from here, we have... I guess the next thing we can talk about is the Toronto Raptors. Jolt is, I believe, at this stage 3-5.
Yeah.
Which for Jolt is incredibly surprising. I think, Jolt being negative at this point of the season is scary. Granted, obviously there was some hacks in the game against Abe. That crit against Azumarill was really rough. Because obviously he was Rest Talk, or he was Resto Chesto, and that would have been really nice for him in that situation. But at the same time, I don't know, I think that, the matchup was really even. I think both of them just played really, really well. And I think, this season, maybe Jolt hasn't had the best team that he's had in the past, but I have heard rumblings of some changes coming soon that I think could definitely, I don't know if it's going to make Jolt's team better. I think what it's just going to do, which I think is still a plus, is it's going to make it a very tough team to prep for. And I think, in league format, that is one of the most dangerous things. You might not have the best team on paper, but it also might be one of the most frustrating ones, because it's just one thing that Jolt's been good at in the past is getting mons that are really good at disrupting very established cores. And I think that's something that he's got here, and that's something that things like Nidoking and Metagross are very good at doing. So I think that, this could be good for him, but obviously, I mean, this has been a very rough season for Jolt. Do you think these trades are going to help him out a bit?
Yeah, I think so. I think the trades will be talked more in the podcast, but I think definitely the mons we got are two solid mons, and I think especially someone like Jolt can use them quite well, and I think they fit his team, give him a bit more offensive pressure, so to say. And I think also what you could just see from this week, he went a more offensive team against Aberford. He thought that would be best, and it came down to if he had not been credited, it would probably came down to a couple of 50-50s at the end. And yeah, that's really hard, especially against someone like Abe. Abe knows the game so well. He has been in the community so long. He just knows how to play really well.
Yeah, and honestly, to be fair, it was a really good battle. So if you haven't seen the battle yet, guys, go watch it, because it was quite even. I think there was also a turn where Jolt could have clicked Play Rough with Azumarill, and I think it would have... I can't remember what it was, but something switched into Azumarill, and it went for Waterfall. I think it may have been Altaria or something, switching to Azumarill, predicting the Waterfall, and he gone for Play Rough there. Could have put him in a much better spot, but it was... I think it was Azumarill was in against Darmanitan, and he chose to click Waterfall, and Abe went out to the Altaria, and if Jolt had gone for the Play Rough there, he could have just taken out Altaria and put himself in a really strong spot. But regardless, we're going to move on. I know two teams here, obviously, that are in this group of four have both come off some wins this week. First one I guess we could talk about is the Bayern Munich, who obviously had that win over the Phoenix Sunflorers. I mean, I knew firsthand the team that Shadi was going to bring to this game, and it was incredibly solid. I think he's fully starting to get the hang of this team now. Obviously, again, like we said with Moxie, he had a bit of a raw deal when it came to the team that he had, but I think, he's made some really good swaps, and he's starting to get the hang of this team now. And against Riz, I think he played it really, really well. Obviously, like we said, Riz has some very big threats, and I think Shadi was able to deal with those threats very, very nicely in this game. And obviously, Manaphy came in quite clutch at the end. Is there anything else you want to touch on from that game?
No, I think it was just as you said, Shadi had a really great plan. He knew, okay, Riz has not great hash removal, let me just head stack him, and then I have Tailglow, Manaphy, and a Bandit. I rent him in the back, and I can really break his team. And that's exactly what he did. He had a solid game plan, and he executed it.
For sure. But the next team we'll talk about, the last team here, I have them a little bit higher than you do. And I guess I have to kind of justify this reasoning for why I've got them a little bit higher. The funny thing is about Dancer right now is after this win, which again was incredibly close against Razor, another very good game, potentially game of the week, but there was also another game I think that kind of beat it for game of the week, just slightly. But I think the big thing about this win though for Dancer is that he right now is in a playoff spot. As far as I can see, is on the track playoffs. Obviously, I know that Danza's track record hasn't been the best, and a lot of his wins have come against the lesser opponents. But it's still, to note that he is ahead of Jolt right now. I think he's 4-4, Jolt's 3-5.
Yeah.
And both have some very tough matches coming up. And it's really between those guys, mainly for that last spot. So I kind of have Danza a little bit above, because out of the teams there, even compared to the Bayern Munich, Danza has the relatively best chance out of the bottom 8 of making playoffs, which is great for Danza because he's played fantastically well. I think, although he got a bit fortunate against Razor, and that Razor maybe made a couple of bad plays, and also he missed a power whip with Delmise, at the same time, you don't just completely win games by fluke. There was a lot of skill in there. There were a lot of big plays that had to be made, and he really utilized Alakazam in Psychic Terrain. Once Sizzle was weakened, Alakazam just went in. And the fact that Sizzle couldn't go for its Bullet Punch meant that he could just knock that thing out straight away, which is phenomenal for him. And it was just a huge threat for his team. So I honestly think that Danza potentially could push himself really into playoff contention here, because all it takes is a couple more wins. And if Jolt loses again, he is in a really strong spot to make it. So I guess that's kind of why I've got him a bit higher. Obviously, you have him below Jolt. Is that because you're expecting Jolt to go ahead of him when it comes to playoffs?
Yeah. It was like, for me, I saw exactly your reason to put Danza a bit higher, because he's 4-4. That's the difference from 3-5, definitely. But I thought to myself, let's just look at the upcoming 4 weeks. And when I was looking at the upcoming 4 weeks, I think I see Jolt making playoffs more than I saw Danza making playoffs. So that's why I put Jolt above Danza.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's kind of a 50-50 anyway. You're either going for the guy who has the better record, or you're going for the guy who's probably got the better chance of making playoffs. Regardless, I think what it does just adds a bit more of a challenge for Jolt, which honestly I think is a refreshing change, because I feel sometimes in the past few seasons he's kind of glided through. I mean, obviously last season he missed out on playoffs actually by the slimmest of margins, but I mean, it was a pretty tough division for him to be in. With, I believe, Abe and Gypsy were both in the same division as him, but this time around he's definitely got a bit more of a challenge in his hands, and what I'm hoping is it brings out the best in Jolt. That would be great. But moving on to the next group of 4, and we have actually 3 in a row here, which is good, because I think honestly these guys are pretty much where they need to be. So do you want to comment at all on Trev and how you feel the Atlanta Braviaries are going heading into, the playoffs?
Yeah, I think Trev is getting a bit better on track. Just to say, he had a really rough loss last week against Anthony. We all know about that one, and he was looking to come back from it, and he played Toad this week, which is a really tough opponent, but he managed to get a win. Where it was a little bit of hacks, but I think overall he's had some solid prep, especially Bandit Celesteela and the Bandit Zygote were really great in breaking Togevar's team, and he could just get a narrow win at the end. And I think this is good to see, because at the beginning of the season it was more that Trev would lose in these narrow situations against some high tier opponents, but now he's winning against them, and I think that gets him in a better mood. And he's 4-4. I think he's in playoff position, or he's just behind playoff position.
He's on the fringe. Yeah, he's close.
Yeah, he's on the fringe, so it's he still has to avoid relegation a little bit, but he's kind of safe from it, and now he's just free to try to strive for that playoff spot.
Yeah, it was a huge win too, because as you can see, Toga is number 7, and Toga, I believe, is it the last 3 games he's lost? I'm trying to think, is the last 3 games? I think it is. I think he is 5-3. He went from 5-0 to 5-3, which is pretty. Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like how Seb was at the start of the season. He was 2-0, and then he just dropped 3 games. So this is interesting for Toga. Obviously, he is actually one of the people that is involved with the trade with Jolt. So potentially for Toge, that could be really beneficial as well for his team. Mixing some things up. But at the same time, I think his last few games have been against, I think, very good opponents. Obviously Trev played incredibly well in order to beat him, and weeks before that, he's just been up against some very, very tough opposition. I still think he's a very good chance to make playoffs. I think he's too good of a player not to be seen in the playoffs, but 3 losses in a row, doesn't matter how good you are or how bad you are, it is not ideal, and I think, hopefully in the next few weeks he can find ways to bounce back from that, because if he keeps on losing, that does open the door for some people behind him. So I think he's definitely got to try and pick his form back up. I think his team is definitely good enough to do that, so hopefully he can find that form again. But up next we do have... Yes, sorry.
One small thing, he lost 2 games in a row. I just checked. Like, he lost week 2 against Blake in that match that he covered for AIM, and now he's on a losing 2 record.
Yeah.
Just
see, I forgot that because I should have realized that because Zaz's the one that hasn't lost. But yeah, basically, it's still the point. Like, I guess my point stands is that he's on a losing streak. He's got to stop. Yeah, it's more like Thank you for correcting me. That's all good. Yeah. Moving up to number 6, which is Seb and the Florida for Alligators. 5-3 for Seb, which is pretty darn solid. Like, he is again like Togue in a pretty good spot for playoffs. I think he played pretty well against Moxie. Wasn't it was a pretty, I wouldn't say it was a very good game, very close game, but I wouldn't say it was, match of the week or anything. I think it was just, Seb, again, did what he had to do in order to win the game, played it really well. Moxie did have a few threats that were kind of an issue to Seb's team, but he did play around them really nicely. It's going to be interesting to see his run into playoffs, though. I think, Seb's the kind of guy that can be a bit up and a bit down, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Would you back Seb to get into the playoffs?
I think he can definitely make it. I think he has quite a good understanding of his team after these few weeks. He had that 2 losses in a row, and I think he went from 3-0 to 3-2, and we were like, okay, what's Seb going to do? Is he going to climb back up or fall more down? But he's climbing slowly up, and I think everyone has a few rough weeks at the end against some great opponents, but I think he can definitely get into playoffs, and he uses his team quite well. I'm really, like the Mega Scissor this week, I'm really great to see that putting in a lot of work for him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people put a bit of hate on Mega Scissor, saying it's not great in draft format, but I think Seb has actually played Mega Scissor really well and shown the versatility of it this season. But we are going to move on to the last team that we have each in this group before we get into the top 4. And we both have these guys at 4 and 5, but I have Gypsy at 5, you have Merc at 5. I'm sure we have our own reasons for this. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Merc. So obviously Merc came off an absolute destruction, I guess. It was an absolute, I don't even know, I don't want to call it, but Maddie just said, McGinn is balanced in draft format, boys, and proceeded to 6-0 him. I mean, it was, I don't really know what else there is to say about that game. Just, there's not much you can do when you're up against something like McGinn, or sometimes. Like, it's just a very hard mon to prep for and play against. I think, this was just one of those weeks where Merc did get destroyed again. Like, obviously, you were mentioning it, I think it was a week or so ago, where Merc has performed really well against the lower competitors, but his record against the higher competitors has not been great, obviously losing to now Zazo, Gypsy, and Maddie. So, obviously, that's not ideal for him. However, I don't think it's going to stop him from getting into playoffs. I think he'll still make it into playoffs. And that's why I've got him currently in 4th, is because I still feel like in his conference he is very well poised for playoffs. And I mean, in that matchup, it was the same thing that happened to Gypsy. Like, it's just one of those Pokemon that's very hard to beat. It's just the amount of moves that it can get, its ability, like things that it can do, makes it incredibly hard to wall in draft format. Plus, when you factor in all the other Pokemon that Dallas has on his, that Dallas had, I did have a right one on first, that Dallas had on his team when Maddie then got it, and then what Maddie added to the team, like, it was just ridiculous. And obviously it led to him now, I think, winning, he's got 4 wins in a row now, I think. Yeah. And they've all been against incredibly good opponents, so I think for Merc, that's why I've kind of got him above Gypsy as well, it's just because although he did get absolutely destroyed in this game, I still think that he is one of the people that I would have locked down for a playoff spot. But next week he does have Abe and the Brisbane Brailliants, which is going to be a very, very good game indeed. But is there anything else you'd like to talk about, I guess, from Merck? Obviously, like, there's not really much else to say about the battle. But
No, I think yes, we give Marjana a lot of credit, and it definitely deserves it. But also, this week was not Merck's best prep. I felt that he could have prepped better, and it was also a bit of the same with Gypsy last week. Like, yes, Maddie destroyed them, but they could have made the games a lot closer if the prep was maybe a bit right, or just the battle went just a bit of the other way. Because as Maddie has already said, and I mocked Maddie a few times, so I also know it, the matches were a lot closer in the mock battles than they were in the actual battles. So, like, nothing to discredit Maddie. So that's just what I want to say.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, one thing that could have been a really nice tech, I think, actually, for Magina could have been something like a bulky Torkoal, obviously resisting both stab moves. Could have been really nice, but at the same time, it's like the issue that I found, and I actually had to prep for a Magina in a league that I was in. You don't want to invest too much of your prep into dealing with Magina, because when your opponent also has things like Mega Zard X, you have to, take some of your time to prepare for that. So it's just, I think it's also just more the team. And I think Maddie was very fortunate in getting pretty much the team that gives him a lot better of a matchup than, say, Shardy or Moxie. But regardless, we're going to move on to the team that I have in 5th and you have in 4th, which is Gypsy and the Sydney Sharpedos. Now, I know it's a little bit rough for me to put him 5th, but the thing is, he was 5th last week for me. And I guess it's the same situation for you. You had him 4th last week, and I feel that it's not really justifiable to move Gypsy a spot. Like, I think that, he played as good as he could against Zazo, because, like, Zazo brought what some would define as a mean team, just because it was literally normal, like, just going for mono-normal moves, which did break Gypsy's team, but at the same time, late game, he decided to click Double Edge. If he had clicked Return, he would have knocked out Lardy, not taken the recoil, could have taken the knockoff from Muck, and been able to kill it with Banded Return plus another Return, and that would have just won him the game. So, unfortunate there for Gypsy, because honestly, at that point, he would have won the game if it wasn't for the double edge crit at the end. So that's why I don't really want to move him down, because I don't feel like it was a loss that he deserved to have. But at the same time, I don't want to move him up, because it's not like this was a big, factor. It wasn't like a huge win or loss for him. It was just a rough week where some bad hacks happened. I still think, again, like when you look at the guys below him in Seb, Togan, all that, I still think he has a better chance of making playoffs than them, because like you'd be a madman to bet against Gypsy King. Like you don't bet against this man ever. But I definitely feel like the big thing he just needs to patch up is that steel type. If you can get him the steel type, I think he's settled. Like honestly, the rest of his team is so damn good. All he just needs is that steel type, and then he has all the balance he needs. And some people have been giving him a bit of flack for dropping Empoleon, but I do feel like getting Toxapex was really, really good for his team. I think just the one thing that he just needed was also picking up that steel type. If he had also picked that up in the same week, I don't think we'd be seeing Gypsy at 5-3. I think we'd be seeing him in a much better position. But regardless, I mean, is there anything else you want to touch on from that?
No, I think you covered it pretty much.
Perfect. All right, we're going to move on to the top three. Well, we're kind of on the slide here where you can see Gypsy and Merker. The other team we both have here, again, we flipped them in order, and obviously we have our reasons, but obviously we had these guys in the same sources last week. I don't really think there's any reason to change them, but do you want to talk a little bit, I guess, about Abe and how you felt he went this week, obviously against Joel?
I think it was a really solid week. Like I mentioned it a few times, like Abe had quite a more easy schedule than some of the other guys that are in our top 5, just to say. But this week he had a really rough opponent. Like Jolt is really good at the format, has really solid prep every week, and Abe really brought it to him. It was a really close game, came down to just some 50-50s, if not for the crit, and there were already a lot of 50-50s in the game, and I think Abe just played really well, made like a double where needed, and got himself the momentum by doubling. And I think Abe is really, really a solid battler. I think you already mentioned it once, but what Abe maybe lacks in experience in the format or in prep, he really adds that up in his battle performance.
Yeah, I think it was a close game. Abe admitted that at the start he did not play his best. Like the early going of this, Jolt was very much in control, and the crit on Azu kind of brought it back for Abe. And in the late game, he played exactly how he wanted to, and he did get the result in the end. It was a pretty rough loss for Jolt to take, but it was also a really big win for Abe, because obviously we had been a little bit worried about how he would be going heading into playoffs with a lot of tough opponents. Obviously, he still has Merc to play, and I think he has a match against Gypsy coming up as well. So, two very, very tough games. But so far, against the opponents he's been up against, he has proven that he can hang with them. He's been performing really well. He still has the second best record in the competition. I guess that's the thing I want to get into as to why, despite how good Maddie has played over 4 weeks, why I've got Abe ahead of Maddie. So, I had a lot of people ask me this when I first put up these rankings from the NPL, and my reasoning is that I fully understand that Maddie has been playing phenomenal. Like, to come in, get 2 6-0s, and just, destroy your competition is fantastic. And I know that Maddie's going to push to playoffs and be amazing. But the thing is, Maddie is 5-3. Abe is 7-1. And to factor in that Maddie has only been here for 4 weeks, Abe has been here for twice as much. So as much as I think Maddie could be 8-0 with this team, the fact of the matter is that his record is still 2 wins behind Abe's. Now, by the end of the season, Maddie could go on to win the whole thing. But when I'm looking at rankings from an overall season, I can't put a guy who's only been here for 4 weeks above a guy who's been here for 8 weeks and has performed to a 7-1 record. Like, I get why Maddie could be higher, because let's face it, these last 4 weeks have been insane. Like, for the things that he's done and achieved, like, I can totally justify him being second place. But for the fact that Abe is 7-1, has performed against high-class opponents and still got the win, and, is 2 wins ahead of, I believe, every other... I'm not sure if he's in the same... I'm pretty sure he's in the opposite conference as us, so he's like 2 wins ahead of anybody else that's near him right now.
Yeah.
So that factor gives him a really good cushion pretty much for the rest of this. Like, there's only a few weeks left. I'm pretty sure there's like 4 weeks left, so he's already got a 2-win cushion. So realistically, all he has to do, because of his ridiculous differential as well, is win 2 games out of those 4. And I don't think there's anybody in his conference that'll be able to catch him. So because of that, I guess, is why I have Abe above Maddie. But I can completely understand why Maddie would be above Abe, if that makes sense. I don't know. But
yeah,
regardless,
I can definitely understand.
Would you like to, I guess, talk about, obviously, Maddie and his crushing performance again, and how you feel, he's been going so far?
Yeah, I think everyone knows Maddie is on a really great streak. He 6-0'd, had a 6-0 this week again against Merc. He brought a really great Marjana set with a Calm Mind Trick Room variant. Merc just didn't have much for it. Like, he had the Crocodile, but it's not an offensive Crocodile, couldn't even one-shot it, that he brought it in at the wrong time. And overall, Maddie just could bring the Marjan in early in the game, and when he was able to set up, it was pretty much a game from there. I think if Merc was able to not let Marjana come in for free in the early game, he could have brought it to Maddie a bit more, because a mon like Greninja is a really big threat for Maddie's team. But yeah, Maddie performed really well, got a 6-0 again, and as you said, he's now on a 4-game winning streak. He's currently 5-3, and he will definitely be making playoffs. And I can definitely see why you put Abe above Maddie, because if you look at the standings, and if you would say Boom makes playoffs for sure, Abe would make it easier. I would put more money on Abe than I would put on Maddie, because Abe is in a more solid position. I just put Maddie above Abe because of those last 4 weeks. He put out really great wins against higher tier opponents. Abe has beat some higher tier opponents, but Maddie has beat more higher tier opponents. So hence why Maddie is just a place above Abe.
Fair enough. And then to finish things off, obviously at number 1, we still have the Lizard King himself. He was probably, this is the closest week that he's had. Next to the first week, I think, against Merc. In all honesty, he should have lost. He really should have lost. He made a bad play at the end. It should have cost him, but hacks is a wonderful thing, and it didn't cost him. And he went on to win that game. But it still stands that after 8 weeks, he is undefeated, and that is commendable. I think, his ideas for dealing with Gypsy were really good. Like, obviously the normal spam was actually really nice, because Gypsy literally had nothing for that on his team, so that was really smart of him. But at the same time, some of the gimmicks were a bit the mono normal attacking, the mono return Thunderous, I wasn't a huge fan of. I think a bit more coverage on that would have been better. But I get that he was trying to just, I wouldn't say it was memes, but I can understand that he was trying to be, showing the flaw in Gypsy's team. But I think, that was a match that Anthony was okay with losing. And somehow he came away with the win, which is, equally frustrating and commendable, I think. But yeah, there's not really much else I got to say about that game. It was just kind of annoying to watch, but you can't really change the result. That's just the game that we play. Hacks happens. Anything else you'd like to say about the match?
I think it was just Anthony thought, okay, this week I could make my best overall team for Gypsy, but there's a major hole in Gypsy's team. That's he has no normal resist. I can also bring a team that's also can perform quite well against him, which is just basically normal spam, and I can just go from there, and it still has a great chance to win against him, and I can save my maybe potential best sets for the potential finals. So and he also knew he was in a position to avoid himself too, so he did just that, and he would have won if he not choked, but then there was hacks and he still won. So basically they both lost, but Anthony got the win. And he's still undefeated, and I think is he already clinched for playoffs or just on the fringe of?
I mean, if he loses all of his remaining games 6-0, then maybe he misses out. But literally, if he loses all of them 1-0, he'll still make it, because his differential is just ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. So we will just see how he will perform the last few weeks. He has still quite some great opponents. I think he plays Maddie for one also, and I think one or two other great competitors. But we will just see how he will perform, and if he will keep his undefeated streak alive or not. We will see.
Probably definitely be his biggest challenge yet, which I'm very excited for. But that is going to do it for Power Rankings this week, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this one. Paul, anything you'd like to close out with? I guess looking forward to the future. Obviously, I guess what we're trying to say is, guys, I think it's about the 8 teams that we have right now. I think maybe I'm just trying to think. I think they're all within playoff contention right now. I believe there's 8 playoff spots, but I think that Trev is in the same division as some of those guys. So I think right now what we're saying is that if you count, I guess, 9th in there with Danza, that's who we're expecting to see in the playoffs right now. But obviously this will change as the weeks go on, depending on the results. But if you want to see all the if you want to see all of the NPL matches, you have to go subscribe to all the coaches in the league to check out their games. Then once you've done that, go check out all the analysts, because we all do a phenomenal job with our analyst work, if I do say so myself, not tooting our horn at all. And then once you've done that, like this video and subscribe to the NPL channel, because we've recently reached 250 subs, which is awesome. You guys are amazing. We're going to try and push the greater things as this year goes on, so your support is greatly appreciated. Also, comment down below how you feel about our rankings, if you agree with them, if you disagree with them. But we would really appreciate that. That's going to do it for us though, guys. I think we're pretty much done. So this is the Verd and Phalop, and we're out of here.